Our three panelists today will look at these impacts from the academic or learning setting, the community setting, and also at our homes. And our goal is to look at how we can approach and adopt sustainable support for children and youth. So before I introduce our speakers for today's webinar, that is protecting the mental health and well-being of children and young people, I'd like to go over house rules. Please mute your mic when you're not speaking. As we go through the session, please send your questions on the chat, and we will keep track of all these questions and lead off with them during the Q&A session. We will also be sharing a recording of this session, as well as additional information and the contact details, if need be, of our panelists today. So I'm very excited to open the floor to our esteemed speakers, and I would like to request each one of them to tell us who they are and how they interact with children and young people in the organization. To start us off, we will have Brigid. Brigid, karibu. Brigid, can you hear us?
Good afternoon, good afternoon.
Thank you, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yes?
Please proceed.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, all of you. I hope you are good today as we go through this very important session. I'm an educator who has been in this in the education field for the last so many years, 35 to be precise, and I've been dealing with the young people and just in support of what they need to go through and how they can overcome any challenges midway their life. Yes.
Thank you for that introduction, Brigid. I'll next invite Abdulkarim Taraja, founder and CEO of Elgon Center for Education. Abdulkarim.
Thank you, Fipi, and all ladies and gentlemen present, good afternoon. My name is Abdulkarim Taraja. I'm the founder of Elgon Center for Education. This is an organization founded by young people, for the young people, and for the community in extension, and we deal so much with the access to education, reproductive health, and as well as trying to mitigate the effects of alcohol and substance abuse in some of the marginalized areas. And we are based in Bungoma, currently specifically here. Currently, I am in Mount Elgon. That's where I was born and brought up. So it's great to see and be part of you as we try to interrogate the issue of mental health and well-being of our children and the young people in this 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdulkarim. And lastly, we have Jacob Soga, who will give us the perspective of a parent in today's session. Jacob, karibu. Jacob, can you hear us? Yeah, let's hope we'll get Jacob back live shortly, and he will introduce himself. So our agenda for today is that we will look at we will look at the challenge, which is the case of mental health in the young people, the impact that this has, our learnings, I think, especially in the last 2 years where this has been rampant, and what's next, addressing the issue of sustainability. And to lead us off, I'd like us to look at this quote that from UNICEF, and that is, they have noted that over the last 2 years, in nearly every part of the world, be it rich or poor, countries, or poor countries, mental health conditions and the lack of caring responses cause significant suffering for children and young people and are a top cause of death, disease, and disability, especially for older adolescents. Brigid, I'd like you to start us off, and you have mentioned that you have 35 years experience. I mean, I know a lot of us can attest to how the education landscape has changed over the last couple of years, but from when you became an educator, what can you tell us about why a lot of our young people and children, children's mental health are suffering?
And for the last, I've been a head teacher for maybe now close to 10 years, but I've worked as senior teacher. I hope you're hearing me. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Now, I've been head teacher for 10 years, but senior teacher for another 10, 15 years. So now, lately, I think for the last, let's talk about 15 years, the curriculum has really been rampant with a lot of learning, less play, and this has actually impacted negatively to our young ones, because as we know very well, that a lot of work without play can make us very dull. So you find that our children have not had time in our fields playing. The small plays we used to have, the baby plays we used to do when we were young, it has been books and books and books. It has deteriorated to a level that we cannot have our children playing at all or relaxation. When they're not in school, we have the tuition. When they're not in tuition, we have the homework. So this child actually's mental health is affected, compromised, because physically the child is not fit. Then the overwork of the mental capacity because of doing the homework or doing the tuition without any play. Now, lately, we have the corona and the other things coming up, which have now even made it worse. That our curriculum has been squeezed in a manner that we have to tackle whatever we were to tackle might be in 14 weeks, in 9 weeks. So it becomes very difficult for the learner and the facilitator at the same time, because the facilitator wants to cover the syllabus, because the ministry has not said otherwise, that some areas of the curriculum will be forfeited during examination. The learner wants to cover the work that the facilitator is imparting to this learner. So it's a burden, because work was programmed for 14 weeks. Now we are doing 10 or 9 weeks. So it becomes like an overload of an extra 5 to 6 weeks, which was not initially programmed. And as facilitators, I think we don't have, most of us don't have that lead whereby you are able to identify the crucial areas which you could cover so that you don't have this learner overworking. Because some of us tend to do every other thing. But for those who understand the curriculum and who know that might be a particular topic was covered in a previous class or will be covered in the next class, are able to adjust and know how to approach it. But if you're not of the previous and the coming class, then you find that you are pushing these young ones at a very bad, to a very bad corner. That's about the learning scenario. Then our expectations as teachers or facilitators, we have this madness of mean scores. Which subject has done how and performed how many people have failed and passed. So when we get into this madness of mean scores, then we push our learners very badly, not putting into consideration that these are young minds and they need time and they also need some relaxation. So I'll only be working towards my mean score. I want my subject to be performed well, but I'm not thinking about this young one. I want this child to do the homework. Do I know the scenario at home? Is this child having every facility that he or she needs to do this homework? Is there a support system at home now that I'm sending the homework to be done at home? So when we push these learners and they have challenges at home as facilitators, we need to be very careful, because a learner will go home with homework, but will not be able to do that homework, and will come to school and will not be able to understand what happened at home, that the homework was not done. So we should have a listening ear as facilitators so that we understand, today Brigid did not do my homework. What happened? Why didn't Brigid do this homework? Why has she not been doing this work every other day? If we are able to know the entry behavior of a child, we are able to help that child through the proper mental status of that child. Because you can push a child, you can push this young one, but you do not know the backbone of the problems that child is going through. Yes.
I think
that's, yes.
No, I think it's very interesting that you have mentioned that the disconnect that is there in terms of what the directives that the teacher have received and the expectations that are there to carry on business as usual in an unusual way, in an unusual environment, which ultimately results in a lot of stressors for this child. And I think the fact that there could be things happening at home, and it would be interesting to find out from Jacob, if he can hear us, what he has seen as a parent on his end, in terms of now the impact of this with the schedule compressed, with the curriculum compressed and expectations raised, how as a parent that has impacted the child at home.
Thank you, Phoebe. Parents were 12 years. Yes. During the lockdown, especially COVID-19 pandemic, we as parents were actually on how to manage the performance of the child against the curriculum, the request curriculum by the ministry. It so much was not after parents.
Jacob, we can't hear you clearly.
We are disoriented, but the education calendar, it was changed, and it was not. It was changed. That it was changed by the ministry. It put us into a situation.
Jacob, can you hear me?
Just a minute. Where what the need the child.
Jacob, your network is a bit unstable. I'm pretty sure you have raised valid points. I'd like to ask you to please repeat what you said, hoping with better connectivity we'll get to hear we'll get to hear to hear your voice, your views clearly. Let's give it another attempt. I'll ask one of my colleagues to get in touch with Jacob, and please let him know that we can't hear him clearly. Meanwhile, I will ask Abdulkarim to also just share with us what you have seen working with the community, and especially that you deal with vulnerable youth, some of whom are out of schools and living in adverse conditions. What are some of the impacts, or what are some of the challenges that they have encountered as far as mental health is concerned?
Thank you so much, Pepe, for that extraordinary introduction and bringing us all clearly to see what is happening right here. And as you rightly put it, whatever you're seeing on the screen, I want to agree in totality with what UNICEF has said. And basing in my own experiences for the last 3 years, working with the students and the young people in Mount Elgon per se and across Bungoma region, there are quite a number of issues that young people are going through that most of us were not able to go through them when we were growing up. You see, in the last 20 years or so, there have been a lot of change in trends and even change of behavior from the young people. You know, when the world started the 21st century, we started meeting or working in an unfamiliar situation filled with technology and access to information and a lot. And so this has also had a very big impact for the moms of the young people. For 10 years ago, we've been having a population that is highly informative. Young people accessing information online and whichever. And this is only keeping on increasing with the highly change of pace in technological advancement. And so in the last three years, when I set up Elgon Center for Education, I started this organization because of my own personal life journey that I was going through, especially in academics, access to academic journey. And I had my... yeah, because of my own personal journey, I had to drop out of school for some time, having challenges from my family, being the only graduate, the only person who has gone to school in my family was not an easy thing. So all the doubting issues that I was able to encounter, all the process, I learned what actually needs to be done. And the reason why I started Elgon Center for Education in order for us to actually promote access to education holistically. And looking back at the challenges that I was facing through, I did not have anybody to talk to or who is interested to listen to my story. So I studied communications and public relations and media, and I was so much passionate to tell a story, the plight of others, and share these stories with the world. So the more I tell this story, the more I listen to better stories. The stories that are not better, but the stories that sometimes need somebody to provide a listening ear. So with this, I began to give young people an opportunity to listen, not to listen, but to say and to talk and to voice up their issues. And I did this because I believe as a communications practitioner that the first aspect of communication is actually listening. Sometimes you go out there, talk to people, thinking that this is what they want to hear, but sometimes it's not. We go there thinking that these are the problems that we think they are going through, but sometimes it's not. So in my own staff, I was able to design a program called Structured Integrated Academics Mentorship Program, where I went to school to listen to the young people. I already know some of the challenges, but then I want to give somebody an opportunity to tell his or her own story, his or her own challenges that is actually there to disturb them and making their lives hard. And in my 3-year session, I have talked to children and I have received numerous information, some very sensitive that they rarely tell even their parents, they rarely even tell their teachers. And these are some of the things. They might look so small, but they're very crucial in that it affects their daily basis. And one of the key issues that I've realized is the aspect of family issues, background. The family the children come from actually has a very biggest determinant on how they are going to behave. How our parents behave at home against each other has a lot of impact on the lives of the children, on how they are growing and how they perceive other behaviors across. So it's been a lot of challenge, and this also can even spill to how they behave within schools and how they carry out their activities. I have sampled parental care into 3 aspects of them. One is a parent who is very overprotective parent. I'm calling it overprotective parent. This is a parent who, if a child even is told that he has done a mistake somewhere, he's always saying, no, my brand cannot do that, unless it's very overprotective. They don't want to listen to hear anything negative about their children. So they don't believe that. And then another, we have a parent who is, I'm calling it overwhelmed parent. This is a parent who is like, is not able to control their children. Sometimes they have their own issues they are battling with, so they leave the society to deal with the children. So even if they are told Kibet or somebody is not doing nothing, they say, go and deal with him. So they are not getting this kind of proper relationship. And then we have a responsible parent who is actually there to guide the child, to listen to them, to understand their issues. And so these are the basics of what happens. So if a child comes from an abusive family where parents keep on fighting, keep on drinking alcohol, keep on issues, they are not actually concentrating on what they need as a child to continue. Then they develop another issue, mental distress, depression. In school, there is a lot of work, the demand for success, the demand for passing exams. So all these things, when it comes together, constrict the mind of a young person. And then they are not able to perform optimally the way they are. So there are so many interrelated things that work across. Yeah. But as Brigid rightly put it also, the issue of the constricted curriculum currently as a result of COVID-19 is also not giving out an opportunity for the young people to vent. I've been to some schools recently this year, actually to do the academic mentorship program. And the young people will tell you, what, we are learning every day from morning to evening. At 4 p.m., they will break maybe for 10 minutes and the remedial classes starts immediately to 7 or 6. From 6, they have to go for supper, come in for preps. And this preps, the teacher is teaching actually in class. On weekends, they are having lots of series of examinations. So they don't have an opportunity for them even to think or to do their own things. Some of them are also going through a lot of challenges where they are being sent home, to bring fees. You go home, no fees, you come back to school, you are sent the following day, others are doing exams. So they are always home on the road, So it piles a lot of pressure to the young person and always want to get like a pinch of time, maybe to vent somewhere. And when they see like some people are doing something else, maybe causing some unrest somewhere, they also get motivated that if we do this, I guess we can have some ample time. At the end of the day, they will say somebody did it, not them, even if they did it and participated. So there are so many related and unrelated issues that's affecting this.
Great. Thank you very much for that. And I like how you have tied a bit on creating a safe environment for our children and young people to speak. And at the same time, Brigid had mentioned having a listening ear. So I think looking at these perspectives outside and shining the light in. Jacob, I don't know whether this time we can get you, but from your experience, we have received the different factors that have been mentioned that contribute to challenges on the mental well-being of our children and young people. What do you have to add on that as a parent, and how have you experienced it on your end?
Thank you, we are on Hello.
Hi,
hello.
Jacob.
Can you hear me?
Yes, not clearly so.
Yeah. The COVID-19 really posed a challenge to us as parents. Given that the ministry was in a confused whether to open schools on time or to extend the period of stay at home. We as parents, having the children at home for a period of a year without any deliberations by the government on how they handle the academic calendar was really a tantrum. For instance, this round where the government insisted squeezing the calendar of with few weeks of holiday. This was piling pressure to our kids because at the same time we expect from them good performances, and the input that they get for a very short time, a very short period of time, is not enough. So this posed a challenge to them, and they were subjected to too much pressure. And having them at home, there is no socializing. We keep pressure on them because now the teachers are also complaining of not being given enough resources. So the pressure now comes to us as parents to avail those resources with the difficulty in inflation and the hardship, the hardship life. It keeps the kid. It ensures that it keeps the kid in an awkward situation, thus affecting the performance in school. I don't know if the government can really come up with policies that incorporate parents' views, not individual parents, but parents' views. Take their time, that this series of meetings with parents across the region, across the country, so that they get different views from all corners, from marginalized places to urban places, and come up with policies that are favorable. Hello, Phoebe?
Yes, I can hear you. And those are great additions, Jacob. Yes, yes. What you have mentioned in terms also of just considering a town hall approach to get feedback of parents, because when all is said and done, parents, it seems, yeah, our kids are suffering in terms of performance. You have said those expectations don't change, they still remain there. And Brigid, because you have been in education for all these years, we have talked of the impact and the impact of the different factors from COVID to the compressed calendar. And we've also looked at the fact that parents might also just be in a very difficult position, even financially, to support children to carry out their roles. How can we identify when our children are facing these issues, number one, and two, how do we support them in addition to listening to them and creating a safe environment for them to speak?
Thank you, Phoebe. Now, as a teacher, as a facilitator, I'll start from that view. Facilitators should take the opportunity when the children get into their schools, for example. Let's assume it's even from one admission or whichever admission it is. There's this form they usually fill, indicating where they come from and the rest of it. Do we go back to these forms and read them afterwards, or we just put them in some file and keep them away? Do we understand this child? What kind of a child this child is? What the challenges they face? Do we ever conduct their guardians or parents to find out how it is at home? So the facilitators should start from there, that they are able to understand the child they are dealing with, or the children that are in their schools, so that, or in their class, so that they are able to be their great friends. You know, you have to be a friend to this child before you become the facilitator. I'm talking about a friend in a manner that you are able to listen to this child, you are able to guide this child, and you are able to, talk to this child. So, as a facilitator, I've practiced this, that anytime I've had to have children in my class, in my school, I have to make sure I understand their entry behavior. Brigid has come in. Where does she live? How is life at home? You know, they'll come and tell you all sorts of stories when they are young. Today, mom and dad fought. This happened at the house, and so on and so forth. So, am I listening to this child? And remember, as a facilitator, Any information you get about a child, whether it's through that admission form, it is confidential. It is between you and the child and the parent. It is confidential. So once you learn this child and know the confidentiality of this child, then you are able to help this child. If you are the child's friend and you talk to this child regularly, you will be able to identify when things are not right. You should be able to identify when things are not right. For example, I'll give an example of Brigid, who has been doing my work every day, will come get some little more work than usual. Then all of a sudden, she's not finishing my work. She's skipping my lessons. I should now start finding out what is this that is happening, which is unusual, that Brigid is not able to attend my classes, is not able to finish my work on time, is not able to come for extra work. This can only happen if I have a rapport with this child. I've been able to listen to him and I understand the child well. So we need to understand the children or the young people so that we are able to identify when things go north. Because if you don't understand that child early enough, when things go haywire, you are not able to tell when this has happened. How do we find out this? They change their mood. Their mood changes completely. If this child was talkative, the child will not talk to you. If this child used to come to your office and ask you questions, the child will not come to ask those questions. Then they have anxiety. You get to class, when you ask a question, it's like they are shaken, yes? Or you mention a name and they look like there's something that has happened. Then you'll realize that this one is not happening well. They'll also try and keep up. For example, if you have a feeding program in school, let's look at a scenario where there's a feeding program in an institution. This child will start skipping meals. Oh, teacher, I'm not feeling hungry today. There you should start looking at what is this that is happening that this child now skips meals. Then they'll have fear. When you are teaching, for example, they're not able to put their hands up or raise their hands to ask questions or answer your questions. Then from there, you should start pinpointing that, no, this one is something. And if you're close to this child, the child will be able to open up. You know, when you talk about mental health, we are talking about an array of issues. It could be depression. It could be an anxiety. It could be obsessive compulsive or something like that. So what is this child suffering from? For example, a child leaves home and comes to school. I, as the head teacher, I want school fees to be paid. And might be this child left home knowing that mom or dad is not working anymore. What happens to this child? Is this child able to concentrate in class? No, of course. When I go and ask for the school fees and the child knows mom lost her job or dad lost his job, what happens to this child? So we need to know how to approach every scenario in an exceptional way so that we are able to actually learn our children and identify when their mental health is affected early enough. So as facilitators and parents, let's learn to listen to our young ones. When you notice that the character is changing, please try and be closer and talk to that child more. I think that will be good up to there. Thank you.
Brigid, I like that you have said that we have to work in collaboration, both as facilitators and parents, and the need for there to be awareness all around when it comes to the environment of this child, of this learner. If it's in the school setting, then we also, it works in the best interest of the child just to understand what is also happening outside that particular environment. And as we come up to the close of the session, as we continue to invite your feedback or questions, what are some of the long-term considerations for young people, Abdulkarim, that you have put in place in a minute or two?
Thank you so much. And I want to concur and really appreciate Brigid. You know, I'm not yet 35 years, and that's why listening to her from 35 years of experience is not easy. And she's touched one of the basic things that I always believe in it, and the reason why I do this structured integrated mentorship program, the aspect of listening, the aspect of collaboration between the learners and the teachers fraternity. It's not just teachers, the parents. That is why the integrated aspect of my work comes in, where we work together between students, that's learners, parents, and teachers as well. And to say the truth, I am a product of a person whose teachers really understood. And I have one particular teacher who really understood, and he knows how to do all these things, his work. You know, he knows almost every child in his school, and he knows where they come from. He knows their backgrounds, and he knows how to deal with them as an individual. So that's the perfect one. So even as I speak about this issue on sustainability, it is the fact that we need our children. We need as a community of parents, teachers, and everybody to partner. You know, when you go to these schools, as Brigid says, there are teachers who are more than teachers, they are facilitators. But you go out there, you will find some, especially of her age, they're actually teachers. They are there to teach. They don't have an aspect of listening. You know, they will tell you a lot of stories from back then. So the most important thing that will take us far is we need a partnership between the learners and the educators. So that at the end of the day, we need an educator who is a facilitator. Because when we create that bond, these young people will be able to communicate freely on how they are feeling. You know, this is what is very important. Number two, we also need to strengthen the school student leadership programs. You know, in the recent years, with all this constricted, you know, academic and performance-oriented mindset that we all want, so you find that, you know, the teachers are concentrating so much on performance. Everybody is concentrating so much on performance. We are leaving out the better aspect of social life. Yes, at the end of time, we'll churn out very good people with very good grades, but they are educated, but they don't have a character that actually suits the 21st century, the skills that we need to collaborate together. So we need that aspect. Also, that is important to strengthen students' leadership, because when the student leadership is actually strengthened, they will be able to create a safe spaces for themselves, for the students, and even for the learning environment for all. Even teachers will not have a lot of issues. But you go to schools, the first people to be intimidated when an issue comes in are the school prefects, are the student body. So at the end of the day, they give up. They have something to tell the administration, they cannot. They see some children suffering, they cannot tell because they are not empowered to do that. So we also need to do that. Number three, we also need to empower the guiding and counseling department. If you see the government of Kenya in the last like 10 years going down, there have been a lot of reactionary aspects from the ministry. You know, something happens, the government comes immediately with so much policies that have not even been developed structurally. You know, they just come to react on things. So we need our government, the Minister of Education and officials to always be proactive on how to do things. If you look currently at the system of guiding and counseling, it's so constricted. You know, to get an opportunity to go to these schools and maybe offer mentorship program, it's not easy. You have to go a series of a lot of procedures for you to get that. And also, you see most of the guiding and counseling departments have also been commercialized. There is a lot of commercialization of guiding and counseling. People come from nowhere. You don't know their character. You know, they just come because they want money. They want to be paid. They have learned the art of speaking. But you know, the reason why I stopped being that kind of person is we can talk a lot, but we are not listening to the small minds. We are not listening to them. We speak a lot of English out there. Talk, you know, courageously because we've been exposed somewhere. But then we are not actually rooting out the main causes. So we also need, as we strengthen guiding and counseling, the counseling department also need to actually vet for the organization and people they invite to come and actually deal with the issues. You know, they should have a structure of how they do their things. It's not just speaking a lot of English. It's not just, you know, like, because I'm so and so, you know, No, let's do that, and we will be able to. And then finally, I think there's one aspect that we always forget: the drug abuse in our schools. There is a lot of drug abuse in our schools, but most of organizations and even the school administrations are not even paying close attention to it. But they are the main causes of why the small things. You know, a school can be burned down, not because of the so many young people, but it's because of the some few clique of individuals who have gone somewhere and shoot something and come, you know, and they decide to do some things. So there's a lot of easy access to drug abuse. And recently, if you check what the Ministry of Education, together with NACADA, in June this year, they released the guidelines on school alcohol and drug abuse in schools. It's a very wonderful document that needs to be checked. So we also have that aspect. We need to ensure that our children are free or find it hard to access those drugs by strengthening the student leadership, strengthening the security, and the general administration of the schools. There are so many things, but I don't want to talk more about that. I can go up to tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Abdulkarim, I like that you're really passionate when it comes to the youth, and that you have worked in terms of looking at supporting them in schools and even just going to the community where they are, acknowledging that not every child or youth will be found in school. And
exactly. In fact, I've been also trying to work on churches, within the churches or religious institutions, and any other forum that's available. We always make sure that we are invited at least to give a talk. During parents' meeting in schools, we also ensure that our teachers, the head teachers, also find that time to invite us. And even we've gotten a lot of good support from our educational stakeholders. When they have meeting, they'll tell Taraja, come, I'll give you 10 minutes to address this group. And that's how we've been able to maneuver and actually reach out. For now, we've reached more than 50,000 people for the 3 years, and we've visited more than 130 schools across Mount Elgon and across the region. And we are happy with the progress that we are having some very minor issues when it comes to school unrest, because we have tried our level best. Thank you.
Which is great. And it comes to what you said. We have to be very intentional and proactive in whatever steps and measures that we take, and not just reactionary, because that is the only way. If we plan ahead, then we certainly are looking at having a more holistic approach that will positively impact our youth and children and give them that support. And I think from all our panelists today, the one thing that I have had is the fact that we need to be multidimensional, not just look at the child that is there and the child that is there in school, but also think what happens outside in the environment when we are not with this child. When this child is in another environment, what are the other factors that come into play? And most of all, creating a conducive environment for them to speak, for them to also share what it is that they will, whatever it is they're going through, and doing so, treating the information that we receive with confidentiality, so that we have that trust. I think I will invite Brigid to wrap up this session for us by telling us what's next. Now that we have established what the issues are, how we have come here, what are some of the ways that we can identify that a child that is going through a difficult time. What's next? What do we do to make sure that we not only have stopgap measures, but we actually have support for this child in the long run to positively impact them?
Thank you, Phoebe. Now, first of all, we should understand that we should just come to the realization that as human beings, we have three faces. The face for our parents, the face of our peers, and the face of the rest of the society. So here is my child, and my child is going through some mental challenges. What can I do to this child? I should not push this child. The more I realize, or at the moment I realize that my child has some challenges, or for example, has issues issues of stress, I need to bring this child closer to be able to talk to this child and guide this child going through whatever the stuff they are going through. And I can just concur with Mr. Taraja that in our institutions, as early as primary level, there are students or pupils or learners who are taking some drugs of some sort. And as we all know, not everybody reacts the same to those drugs or whatever, the alcohol or whatever. Everybody's makeup is so different. There are children who will use them and you will never realize that. But there are those who will try, and I'm telling you, it will be chaotic. So as a parent, as a teacher, as a facilitator, let's be close to these children and tell them the disadvantages of getting involved in some issues and the repercussions that will follow afterwards. For example, I've worked with the young people and I've always told them in black and white. For example, like if, for example, you go and get involved in smoking your bun or taking your drug, it's going to affect you in this manner. So can we be able to preach and tell them the side effects of getting involved in some of these habits that can cause them mental difficulties? Because we know of people who have used something like the ban, who behave very normally. But we have some who will have a mental breakdown. So what we need to do as learners, as parents, is that let's get on top of the matter. Understand all the types of drugs that are being used around us. Understand all the social ills that can be around us, so that we are able to help our children out of this. I know Mr. Taraja will concur with me. There's something that has come up nowadays. Forget about bang and heroin. There are some things called psychedelics, which are now in the market where the young people will use them and they see a third world and a third eye. I don't know what they call it. So as a facilitator, Mr. Taraja and all of us, can we find out what is this that they're doing behind us so that we can be able to help them out? The last year, actually, I've gone through a hard time with some youth who are depressed and trying to talk them out and just guide them to make sure that they are coming back on their feet. It took an intervention of quite some time because they felt their life is gone with the corona, with their businesses gone, with their jobs being laid off and so on. So we need to emphasize to them that when this one is not working, something else can work if it's a young person. If I've been laid off from my working place, it's not all about having a white collar job, but having something constructive that I can do will be able to let me go on. So let's be there to support them, get to our churches, get to our family networks, and make sure that the young people are moving on. Let's not be like, I am in school, I'm the teacher, that is gone. No, what about the family? Where are your nieces and nephews? What are they going through? What about your neighbors? What about in the church, the people who come to your church? How are they going through? So let's be an all-round nation whereby we support anyone within the nation and beyond, so long as they're on this planet, so that we can have a young people who are productive and moving on positively. Thank you for that.
I couldn't have wrapped it better myself, Brigid. Thank you very much for that. And I hope that the participants of this session will leave this meeting having committed to being transparent, to identify, guide, mentor, and support our children and young people to be productive people, not only in the society, but also for their own good and well-being. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's 1 minute past time. I want to thank you very much for your time, for participating in today's session, and wish you happy holidays and hope that we will get to see you in our other events. Thank you very much and have a lovely rest of your afternoon.
Thank you, Phoebe. Bye.
Thank you, Phoebe. Bye.
Thank you. Phoebe. Bye. Bye
Thank
bye.
you so much, and see you, Giamini, all the way.
Bye.
See you guys.